In this video, we're going to focus on how we can create a dark and light mode. So for example, if I click on this, it's supposed to become dark. And what happens, everything changes here, and including the black bar converts into a white bar. And then if I click on this here, it will return back into its original state, including the transparency level here. You can see here and there. So let's start to explore how to do this. And you might notice at the very end of the video, I thought the tooltip here would not work. However, for some reason, when I restart my computer, eventually it all works perfectly. So what looked like a bug at the very end is not a bug at all, and it's just something wrong with my browser at the time. Anyway, let's start and explore now how to do this. In this video, we're going to answer one of the viewers' questions, which is how to implement dark mode in Chart.js. So this question came from one of my other videos about how to use the day ticks and hour ticks in the x-axis in Chartjs. And if you scroll down, you will see eventually the question came from LiquiInvest SRO. So special thank you to LiquiInvest for asking the question. And this is what LiquiInvest asked. But basically there were two questions, but this question will specifically go into what is the best way to implement a dark mode, or basically how can we implement dark mode in Chartjs. So if you want to know the other question, I already covered that one in one of my other videos. Anyway, so let's start to focus on how we can do this. Well, the first thing what we need is we need to go to chartjs3.com, getting started. And here we're going to, you might notice this error here, but it's alright. For some reason, my Google Chrome gives this error. Anyway, if we scroll down here, all we need is basically this chunk of code here that we can copy and paste. Once we copy this, and if you want to understand what this code does, make sure you watch this video that explains the JavaScript of it. So then what I'm going to do, I'm going to paste this in here. And once I did that, I'm going to cut out this and put in here, or paste that title in there, save this, refresh. There we are. So now we have a bar chart here. And what I want to do with this bar chart, I want to have a checkbox here that will activate a day mode and night mode. Basically default in white, or else in dark mode where it becomes black. So what we're going to do here, just very simple, I'm going to create here a quick check input type checkbox. So input type, and we say checkbox, and this checkbox we can just eventually say we give it a on change. That would be the right one. And the reason why is that, so we want to make a function, and this function should be triggered on change. That will mean here, let's say here, this will be some double quotations here, and then we say a dark mode function, that's a trigger. Then we say here this, meaning we're grabbing this specific checkbox here that data will be inserted into our function. And then what we can do here, we can just say here very simple, a span. Let's say here dark mode or light mode. I will not spend too much time on this, but of course there's a logic in that we can do an if statement, but that's not that important. Most important one is here basically this here, and of course once we check this, the class should change into a color, or this should be lightened or darkened depending on the state we select this. So we have this here, and let's go down here, and then we're going to create a function, and this function, and before I continue, I want to just make some extra space here. There we are. Let's say a dark mode equals checkbox. And then what I want to do here is I'm going to grab here the checkbox. There's a checkbox dot checked. And what you can do here now is to do a console log. And the goal here is just to analyze, is it checked yes or no. So if I save this now and refresh, open up developer tab. Alright, I don't know what's that. I probably have to clean up that. But if I click on it, you can see here it's false or true depending on what the state is. If it's selected, in that case it will become true, as you can see, and if it's unselected, it will become false. So we have this working here, and let's see here in the dark mode. Alright, remove that slash there, or that forward slash. So we have here the dark mode, light mode, and then what I want to do here, just very simple, just a class, simple class here. And this class here, basically we'll just say here, this one will be dot dark mode. And what does dark mode do? Well, this is of course not JavaScript, it's CSS. Then in here we say color for the text, and this will become, I guess, black. So what we're going to do now, of course not, sorry, it's not black. Why? If it's dark, we want to make sure that this is white, so it's readable. And then if we uncheck it, it will become default color, which is right now the default color, which is black. Alright, so what I want to do here basically is this. We can just say here the following. Let's see here, we can give it an ID or a class, doesn't matter here, I'll just give it ID. I'll say here checkbox text. And just very straightforward here, checkbox text is basically this. And then we can say here if click, or basically an if statement, if checkbox text, or let's see, that's the ID. So what we're going to do here is document dot get element by ID. I'm going to grab this, and then we just say here the following. This one, and we say dot class list. And basically what I want to do here eventually is an if statement, or a statement where it says if it would be checked, in that case we should add or remove the class list. So in this case, what I'm going to do here, I guess it will be the best if I do an if statement. If checkbox checked equals true, in that case we're going to do this one here, move that in there. I'm going to remove that. Then we say here add, what exactly we want to add is the class of dark mode. And if that is not true, or basically we just copy this, we can say this here, if false, in that case I want to remove dark mode. So if I save this now, refresh, we should have here now something working. Alright, by default it is here, if it's checked it should be added, and if it's unchecked, alright, it's already white. You can see here, this is fine. So now we have this here. So let's start to work really with the most important part here. Basically it's the JavaScript, because we have a lot of work to do here. We need to work with the grid lines. All these grid lines need to be adjusted, and we need to have all these text here being adjusted as well. And of course we need to solve this issue here, because this is a dark bar, basically black color, and that will be a problem the moment we move into a dark mode, because then we need to convert it into a white bar, or else it's going to be visible. Of course you might say, well, if you're going to use dark mode, you might maybe not use a black bar or a white color bar. You just will use a color bar that is different from that, because that will avoid the issue. So that will be probably more logical. However, in this case I want to just show you an option, so that if you would have a case like that, so you know how. Alright, so what are we going to do now? I'm going to go in here, and then what I will do here is the following. I'm just going to remove this, and I'm going to create here a new constant, and this constant will be x. And the reason why is we need to now work with the grid lines. But the grid lines, or the scales, we have the x-axis and the y-axis, so we need to target them both. To keep our code a bit more concise, I'm going to use a shorthand. So I'm going to say here my chart, and then we say here dot config dot options, and then here dot scales dot x. And basically what we're really doing here is on my chart to config, and then here into options, and then scales, and then basically in the scales here we can start to give it colors, x or y, depending on what we want to pinpoint. In this case this will be the x version, so we have another one for the y-axis, and the y-axis will just basically be this and putting this. And here what we really will do is basically this here. So imagine this, we have this here. And then what we want to do here is say, for example, grid, and then in the grid we have another object, and then here we say color, and this color could be, let's make this blue. If I save this now, you will see here, now these grid lines are becoming blue. Basically we're doing this here, but then here in a shorthand code. So I'm going to remove this again, and just continue on with our item. So what we're going to do here now, and this will be a long chunk of code here. There might be a better way to refactor it, but for this video I will not go deep into refactoring. I guess showing you step by step makes a lot of sense for you, especially if you're new to this. So what I'm going to do here is the following. I'm going to say here, if it is checked, and let's put in here checked, put in enter. Alright, then what I like to do is the following. I will say here the x, I'm going to grab the x, and then I'll say here dot grid dot border color. and then this border color equals white. And then of course what we want to do as well, exactly the same for the y-axis. And with just basically this here means this will be first written and then continue on with this. So it just saves us some time in writing this long chunk of text. So the next thing what I want to do, of course, next is the border color. Sorry, not the border color, but we have the grid color itself, which is the font color. So we say x.grid.color. And this here equals white as well. And well, what we can do is maybe in other color, that would be even better. 255, comma, or RGB. Let's make this RGBA. So we have a transparency level. I'm going to say 255, comma, 255, comma, 255, and then have a transparency of 0.5, meaning 50% transparency. So I'm going to copy this, and then after we're going to start showing this. Put a y-axis as well. If I save this now, and now if I select here, let's see, we have a few things are working, alright, but of course not everything. So why it's not triggered here? Because we need to do a mychart.update. Update. If I save this now, refresh, and now if I select, you can see here something is working here. But of course it is not fully active. You can see here these grid colors and the white color, border color, that's all fine. So what I'm going to do now is the following. I'm going to make sure that the background converts into a dark color as well. So what we can do here is, well, basically we could say here, this item, where are we? Here, this one, this could be in the color of black. So I'm going to say here, chart box, and then maybe we can say here, I guess we can give it a div, and let's say, what we can do, give this a background chart. All right, I'm going to give it background chart, maybe background color chart, maybe more appropriate. And then what I want to do here is the following. I'm going to say constant, and I say document dot get element by ID, grab the ID item, and then we have this one here. So what I want to do now is once we have this, and then this constant should have a name. All right, so we say here BG, let's say BG color chart. And then what I want to do here is the following. I'm going to say enter. We put in this, and then we say here style dot background color equals, and then we say here black. That will be more than enough. Very straightforward. The same thing what we're going to do here, but then here we're going to put it back onto white. We can play around with classes as well. Doesn't matter. It's up to you what you prefer. So in this case, I show you just multiple options. If I save this, we should see now an adjustment. All right. So there we are. So now we have this, but you can see here still we have a few things to solve. I want to solve as well the font colors here and there and that one as well. So how do we do this? So we have these colors here, which translate here, but although it's very hard to really see, let's do another one, which is basically a default setting. But this default setting will only trigger the color here for some reason, not on everywhere else. I was hoping for everywhere else, but it doesn't. So anyway, we're going to say a chart that default with an S and set color equal, and then we put in here white. So if I do this and save that, refresh, now if I check mark, you can see this becomes white. And there we are. So what we can do next, of course, is do exactly the same here, convert it all back into a darker color. So I'm going to grab this, or basically all of these here. You can just copy all of this, what we have so far, paste that in here, and then instead of, well, this background color should be white, but this one should be the border color. So what can we do with the border color? We can get the original color back, which would be #666. And then we have another border color, and that would be, oh, we can do here maybe even black, doesn't matter so much. And then you have here the grid color. What will be the grid color? I guess we can say here for the grid color, well, let's do it like that. 0.1. That's the original color. So basically it's black, but the transparency level is 90%. So that's why you only have a 10% visibility. So we have that one here. Now we did that as well. What are we missing? The chart color, and this one will be, let's give this again as well a hashtag 666. Save that, refresh, click, there we are. Alright, so now you can see here we have this all quite nice. So what we need to do here, and I realized that I forgot about this one, of course we need tooltip as well. Anyway, let's solve this issue here, and then afterwards we can maybe check with the tooltip what we could do that would be the best solution for it. So we have this here, this bar. I want to solve the bar first. So what we're going to do with the bar is basically here two options. First of all, this bar here needs to be converted into white, but you can see here all of this is not really that appealing. So what I want to do, I want to convert all of these to solid colors. So what I'm going to do here is the following. I'm going to say here my chart. And basically to make it solid colors, I want to grab this one. So I say the background color will be equal to border color. And the border color you can see here all has an alpha value of 1, meaning 100% visibility, 0% transparency. So what I'm going to do here is the following. We say here my chart config dot data sets, and this data set of course is 0. We only have one data set here. Then we say here background color, and this background color will be equal to what exactly? Well, I'm going to grab here everything, will be exactly identical, and then I'm going to say here this, but then this will not be background color but border color. So once we did that, we have this one done. Save that, refresh. Oh, let's see, unexpected, 115. Let's see what's going on here. Alright, you can see here I forgot this. I need to do here my chart. Paste it in there, save that, refresh. So now if I check mark this, there you are. Alright. So what happens of course is we need to undo this, but I want to first solve this color here. So what can we do here? What I want to do then is instead of this black color, I want to convert this into a white color. So what we're going to do here next is the following. We're going to loop through this, and basically with the loop I'm going to use here a map, so an array map. So I'm going to copy this, we put it in here, and let me explain here. We're going to loop and check if one matches the black color code. In that case, make white. So that's what we're going to do here, an if statement. Of course, if you don't have a black color, which would probably be more logical to do, so you can remove all this excess code here, just to put it in a different color. Any color would be sufficient as long as it is not a dark or dark, not a black color or a white color. Even gray would be acceptable. So what we're going to do here is just very simple. I will just say here background color, alright. But then I will say equal to the following. Now I say here my chart dot config, and here we're going to say data sets, exactly the same. We're going to loop through the data sets here, and basically what we did here above almost identical, except now we're going to do this. We're going to make a map method we're going to use. So basically this could even be removed afterwards. However, knowing how to do this is a useful one. And here we have another one as well, which will be eventually here we will say this. Then we say here border color dot map. And I guess what I want to do here then, this has no real value. I'm just going to comment on that one. What I want to do here, I will say here the following. So here color, and this color, grab this color, and this color will be doing the following. I'm going to say here a let value which would be solid. So we're going to give this a color name which is solid, and then what I'm going to do here, if, and then we're going to say here if the color what we have would be equal, and it could be equal strict as well, doesn't matter, but I'll just do equal here, RGBA, and then we're going to say here 0, 0, 0, 0.1, which would basically indicate that this is a transparency level, but also black. It indicates black with a transparency level of 90%, which is the case. If this is true, so if this color equals this value, in that case I want to grab the item here, and then we're going to say here, oh, then I will say here, solid will be equal to this value here. Alright, so I'm going to say this equal this, but I want to say here, we make it white. I'm going to do the opposite direction, 255. So once I did this, then I get this here, and then what I want to do after the if statement, because we're still within this map loop, then I will say here, return solid. If I save this, refresh, let's see, click on that, there we are. Alright, so what is going on here? I guess we should maybe not get this one, but we should get here the, because we're going to grab the border color, we make this one. So that would be here, I guess it should be number 1, because we're going to compare we loop through the border color itself. So I'm going to save this here, refresh. So now if I do this, there we are. Alright, although if you have a black border around here, this is still quite acceptable. However, I want to convert this now back into a black item, and here we have now the white item. So this looks quite decent. Having these solid colors makes it very clear. So what we're going to do here next is the following. Almost similar to what we have here above, except now we just do it a little bit different, because what we want to do now is convert it back. To convert it back, we need to figure out how we can do a transparency level again. Because basically we overwrite our item, our background color has no more 0.2 transparency. So that will mean that we need to build that in there. So how do we build that in there? Well, luckily, all we did was basically grab the code and convert the code into a solid. So the code itself, or the numbers, are exactly identical except for black and white. But everything else is identical except that it's 0.2 or 1. So that's the only difference there is. So let's work on that right now. So what we're going to do here is, I'm going to say here my chart. In my chart, I'm going to say here again config, and then we say here data set 0, because you only have one data set here. And then I'm going to say here's the following. My background color here will be equal, or will be this. So the background color is, and then we can just copy almost this, except later on we're going to change this. I'm going to say here border color. And then we say here dot map. And then what we're going to do here is exactly the same. We're going to say color. We'll loop this color value. And what we're going to do here now is the following. And this is basically a callback functionality here. So this is what we call a arrow function expression, because we're making a function here. Normally, if you want to have like that, you should say here function, and then you would do like that. But of course, this is not necessary anymore because we have these arrow expressions here. So what we're going to do here is the following. I want to make sure that this is really clear, because what we want to do here is we want to loop again through all these values, but now they're solid numbers with 1, but convert the very last number 1 into a 0.2. So we have here this. What we're going to do now is the following. I'm going to say here constant, and it's going to make this a constant cleared. And this constant cleared, or maybe clear, transparent value, whatever you want, it doesn't matter. But then we say equal. I'm going to say here color. We grab the color, but what I want to do now is I want to remove the last 2 digits, or the last 2 characters. So I'm going to say here the following. I'm going to say a substring, because basically what we really have, maybe that's even better to show you first before you continue on. Console log, and then here the color. Save that. Refresh. If I click on this and click here, you can see here all of these are solid. So that's a problem here. And basically what I want to do now is make sure that this is now equal to 0.2. And you can see here this is really nice, because what we really adjusted was only the background color into a solid, but we didn't adjust the border color. So this will save us some time and hassle, because now what we can do is we can just grab the border color and just convert this into 0.2, and it will be nicely transparent black again, without for us to redo everything and recalculate it back into a black item, because it already has the value in the border. So what I want to do here is basically this. So we're going to say here constant cleared, and that's the one here below. And what I want to do here is I say color, whatever the color is in here. We grab these values and then do substring. And the substring would allow us to remove certain characters. And what you need to indicate is where we want to remove it. I want to say 0, but then I will say where will be the starting point. I'm going to, basically I want to remove not at the beginning, but I want to shorten the amount of characters. And the amount of characters I want to shorten is basically how many we have here minus, so we're going to grab here the length minus 2, which is the last 2 only. When you remove the last 2, because this is always consistent. So that's a lucky thing for us. So we don't have to do very complicated items. So we can grab here this value dot length minus 2. We'll grab basically this part only without the 1 and the parentheses. And from there on we can work on the code. So I'm going to say the following. Substring. And then we're going to say here color. And this color we'll say a dot length. Then we say minus 2. So if I do this, I do a console log again. Then we say it cleared. Comment that out. Refresh. And now click and click. Alright, you can see here now we're removing the 0.2 or the 0, what is that? The comma and then 1 parentheses. So we removed that one. Now I want to add 0.2 parentheses in here. So what I'm going to do here is just basically concatenate as well. So how do we concatenate? Well, basically here I'm going to say the following, return. Now we return is this, and what we could do is here backticks. I'm going to say here backticks, and then I'm going to say $, curly braces, because this is a variable. And then what I want to do here, because there was a space in here, remember they have a space, you can see the space being added in here already. It's already in there. Why is the space added, or why is it there? We only remove two digits or 2 characters, 1 and this one, these 2 here. We can remove 3. That will maybe look even a bit more professional. But sometimes I remember that some people remove, like do it like this. And then if you do that, you have a problem that you might remove the comma, and then you get a whole issue. The only 2 we want to remove is the 2 last one. So I want to say here we have this, and then what we're going to do here is I'll just say here 0.2 closing parentheses and then semicolon. If I save this now, refresh. If I click on this, and there you are. So now you can see here we converted it back nicely. So now we have this. Let's see, do we have everything already? We have all these colors here, we have everything here. If we click on that, there we are. So that looks nice. So the last thing probably will be our tooltip. So what I want to do here, I guess giving a white color would not be really recommended, as well as a black color. So what we could do maybe for the dark one, well, we can put in white, but we have to convert all the font colors as well, and this will be a lot of work. And as well the square box here, that might give us an issue. So what I'm going to do here, instead of that, I'm just going to convert it into a gray color. So let's start to focus on the tooltip. Most important part here, if you just refresh here and click, you can see here the black one needs to be solved. We can maintain the black here, but I would suggest here not to put in white, because that will be in conflict with our text here. Maybe a light grayish effect here, very similar to the black amount. Alright, so to do this, what we need to do here first is we can just put in here, we're going to put in here a default command. We're going to say a chart.default.plugins.tooltip, and then basically in here we're going to say .background color. So the reason why we're doing this and not maybe like my chart and then config and from there on to options, which is normally the common way, is because if we don't have the command here, we get an error. So that will avoid the error, because then what we're really doing is we're just playing around with the original settings or the default settings instead of in here, because it will give an error because it says, hold on, I don't see here the item that you're looking for, because the official item would be basically this, plugins, and then here tooltip, and then here background color equal, and then here would be the value. But if you don't have anything like this, or this object already in here, it will give an error. It says, sorry, I cannot find it, it's undefined, doesn't exist at all. So in that case, we need to play around with it by going to the default setting that we have here. And then here I'll just say equal, and I'm going to put in here the value, and this is the default value that we're going to use, which is the RGBA, and then here 0, 0, 0, comma 0.8, meaning 80% 80% visibility, 20% transparency. So if I save this and refresh, you will see here now basically this is still same, and that one is same as well. Alright, so once we did that, what we can do here is maybe a grayish color or something like that. Put in here, but let's say here maybe 100 by 100 by 100. If I save that here, let's see if this is an acceptable color. Here you see nothing happens, but if I move this here, you might notice here now it starts to show, and that is slightly acceptable. I would say maybe to make it a bit more lighter, let's say 150 by 150 by 150. So we are 150, of course. Save that, refresh. If I click on this, there you are. So this is basically the way we can do it, and that will show it nicely. And what I would, oh, what happened here? All right, that works. Am I correct? For some reason, if I hover over here, it doesn't work. So I'm going to check on that later on. Alright, so at least this works, but what happened if I go back here? Doesn't work, doesn't work. Alright, so we have to figure out what's going on here. Alright, so after checking, I'm not able to explain what is happening here, because you can see this works here if I click on it, but if I hover over it, it doesn't work. And if I open up my console log, and then suddenly it works fine. And I can hover over here, and then it will work. And then if I go back here, this will work as well. So I'm not sure if there's a bug in there or there's just something wrong in it. So I will have to check with my code as well to see if there would be a trick in here or something is missing. So I even tried to comment out this part, believing that maybe this would become an issue, but it should not be. And if I comment it out, it still works exactly the same. Weird. As long as the console log is open, it will work. But if the console log closes, it doesn't work anymore. So that will be an interesting topic to search more about. Anyway, so this is basically how you can do the dark and light mode. Of course, this one here will be a question mark. What is exactly going on here? If you want to go more advanced, because I have a topic here that's basically more advanced. For example, here we have the speedometer that will be eventually converted into a dark or light mode. But this is specifically in a plugin, so that's far more advanced. I would highly recommend to watch this one, but to understand this here, you need to watch another video, because this video is built on this specific video referred here. This is very important, but this one is a bit more advanced, where you play around with a needle that eventually changes color based on dark or light mode. So it requires a bit more advanced thinking and logic in there.